There's this invisible force out there that seems to shape our whole world, but most of us, we never even see it. And no, it's not luck, and it's not just about having money. It's more like this invisible current. It pulls wealth towards some people, and at the same time, it just seems to push it away from others. I mean, have you ever felt that? Like you're swimming against a current you can't even see?
It's a question that really cuts deep, right? Because it feels so personal. We're all told the same thing. Work hard, save your money, follow the well-trodden path. But what if that path, the one we're all told to follow, was actually designed to lead somewhere else entirely?
Well, here's the thing. The truth is, there's this, let's call it an invisible blueprint that supports generational wealth. And it's not built with money, it's actually built with a very specific set of beliefs, a kind of psychological framework that gets passed down from one generation to the next. And that framework, it creates a completely different financial reality for them. So let's get right into the first unspoken lesson, and it's a big one. Your mindset comes way before the money ever does. See, wealthy families, they just know that a scarcity mindset will sabotage any amount of income. But an abundance mindset, that can create opportunity from literally nothing. This one belief, it's the fork in the road where two completely different financial lives begin to split. And it all starts with a really simple change in the words you use every day. Yeah, it really does start with language. Most of us are taught to see limits. The phrase, "we can't afford it," that's a brick wall. It's the end of the conversation. But wealthy families, they teach their kids to ask a different question. Okay, so how can we afford it? It seems like a tiny shift, but that one change completely rewires your brain to start looking for solutions instead of accepting barriers. Now, this whole idea of reframing obstacles, it goes even deeper, especially when it comes to one of our biggest fears. And that fear is failure. This reframing, this different way of thinking, applies directly to it. See, most people are taught that failure is bad, something to avoid at all costs. But in the world of wealth creation, failure is just data. It's information. Think of it as the price of tuition you pay in the school of the real world. This kind of psychological resilience is what allows them to play a much longer and frankly much bigger game. And once you get that mindset locked in, the first real actionable rule becomes crystal clear. Okay, so rule number one, once you've got the right mindset, it all comes down to where you put your resources. Most people, when they get a little extra money, they reward themselves with stuff, consumption. But wealthy families do the opposite. They invest in skills that can never be taken away from you. Things like negotiation, financial literacy, public speaking. Why? Because skills pay dividends for the rest of your life. But what you know is only half the battle. The next rule, it's all about who you know. All right, rule two. And this one kind of contradicts everything we're normally told. The common advice is, right, just keep your head down and work hard. But the wealthy teach their kids the exact opposite. Look up, talk to people. The biggest opportunities in life, they don't come from filling out online applications. They almost always come from conversations. Your network, it's like a living, breathing ecosystem of opportunity. And the next role is all about how you turn those opportunities into genuine long-term security. So, rule number three. Think about it. Relying on a single job for all your income is like trying to build a house on just one pillar. It's incredibly fragile. So the third rule is all about diversifying your income. Wealthy families are masters at building multiple streams. Things like real estate, investments, business ventures, royalties. And this isn't about greed, not at all. It's about building resilience, a financial fortress that can withstand any economic shock. But to really build these streams effectively, you have to get comfortable with a tool that, frankly, most people are terrified of. And that tool is debt. Now, for so many of us, the very word debt is just terrifying. But wealthy families teach their kids that there are actually two very different kinds of debt. There's bad debt. That's the stuff you use to buy things that lose value, like cars and gadgets. But then there's good debt. And good debt is a tool. It's leverage that you use to acquire assets that grow in value, like a business or an investment property. Understanding this difference, it's like knowing the difference between a poison and a medicine. Now, to see how all these rules really come together and play out in real life, let's look at a quick story. Okay, so to really see how these rules can completely shape a life over time, just imagine two friends. Let's say they start out in the exact same place. Same education, same first job, same starting salary. They're standing at the exact same fork in the road, faced with the exact same set of choices. The first friend, he goes all in on his job. His focus is on climbing the corporate ladder. His entire financial life is defined by promotions and that single paycheck. You could say he's building a career. Now, the second friend, he also works hard at his job, but he sees it differently. It's just one piece of a much larger machine he's trying to build. So in the evenings, while the first friend is relaxing, he's learning a new skill, maybe coding. On the weekends, he's out networking. He even takes on a little bit of that good debt we talked about, a small, calculated risk to buy a tiny rental property. At first, it's not much at all, just a trickle of extra income. But you see the difference? He's not just earning a living, he is building a system. For decades, honestly, their lives look pretty similar from the outside. But then, one day, the inevitable happens. The company downsizes. The first friend, the one who built his entire world around his career, loses his job. And just like that, his only stream of income is gone. His path comes to an abrupt dead end. But for the second friend, well, losing his job is a disruption for sure, but it's not a disaster. Why? Because that system he spent decades quietly building in the background, the skills, the network, the assets, all those little streams of income, it's now grown into a wide, stable foundation. For him, this isn't the end. A whole new chapter has just begun. That story really shows how these rules don't just create wealth, they create security. But rule number 5 is about the other side of the coin, preserving it. Because here's the kicker, building wealth is often a logical process, but losing it, that's almost always driven by emotion. It's fear that makes people sell everything at the bottom of a market crash. It's greed that makes them buy into a bubble right at the very peak. The wealthy train their children to detach their emotions from financial decisions, to act on principles, not on panic. And that emotional control, that discipline, is absolutely key for mastering the next rule. So this emotional control leaves us directly to Rule 6. You have to avoid the herd. Think about it. By the time an investment is all over the news and everyone's talking about it, the real opportunity is long gone. The real value is almost always found in the things that are being overlooked or ignored. So the wealthy teach their kids to buy valuable things when they're unpopular and to be deeply skeptical of hype. They don't follow the crowd. They actually wait for the crowd and then often go the other way. And this kind of independent thinking, it doesn't just apply to investments, but also to how they present themselves to the world. Yeah, our culture pretty much screams that wealth is all about flash, the fancy cars, the big houses. But true wealth understands a very powerful, very quiet principle. Performance attracts risk. The more you broadcast your success, the more you make yourself a target. So, rule number 7 is simple. Be quiet. Quiet wealth is focused on accumulation, not admiration. It prioritizes peace of mind way over showing off. And this detachment from what other people think, it's rooted in a fundamentally different view of what money actually is. For most of us, our relationship with money is just loaded with emotion, right? Guilt, pride, anxiety, it's all mixed in there. Rule number 8 is to strip all that away. Wealthy families teach their children to see money as a completely impartial tool. It's not a measure of your self-worth. It is not the goal itself. It is simply a resource, a tool that you use to buy the most valuable assets of all: freedom, time, and options. When you see money as just a tool, you start using it logically. And that logical approach is absolutely essential for the final and perhaps most important rule of all. And here it is, the rule that really ties everything else together. Think in decades, not in days. Our world today is just obsessed with overnight success, right? Quick wins, instant gratification. But real, sustainable wealth, it is almost never built quickly. It's built slowly, through patience, discipline, and the quiet, unstoppable power of compounding over decades. Now, this is not the most exciting or glamorous rule for sure, but it is, without a doubt, the most powerful. It's the simple understanding that small, wise decisions repeated consistently over a long period of time will absolutely, inevitably shape your entire future. So when you step back and you look at all these rules together, a very clear picture starts to emerge. The great divide between the wealthy and everyone else, it isn't really about the amount of money in your bank account. And it's not just about luck or privilege either. The real gap, it's a gap in information. It's like they're running on a completely different operating system for making decisions, an OS that most of us are simply never taught how to install. And that, right there, reveals the most empowering truth of all. The greatest inheritance you can receive isn't a trust fund. It's a framework for thinking. It's this set of rules. And the beautiful thing about rules is that they can be learned. They can be adopted. They can be applied by anyone, anywhere, no matter where you're starting from. So the only question left is the one that only you can answer. Now that you know the rules of the game, what path are you going to choose?